Welcome everybody to the Late Night Sugma program. I am your host, Tom, EPQM, Tom from the Round Table, the Sugma male himself, and welcome. It is Friday night again at 11 p.m. EST, and we got a show for you tonight. First of all, I'm turning 24 during the broadcast. It is going to hit midnight, and when it hits midnight, I will be 24. So that's exciting. Also, if you saw in the news this week, there was a shooting not that far from where I live. I'm in Metro Detroit. There was a shooting in Oxford, Michigan at a high school, and we will very shortly be bringing on a former student who reached out to me and asked to be on the program to talk about it, and that's going to be a bit later. I'm also going to talk about, of course, we gotta talk about JoJo. I always want to talk about JoJo. Gotta talk about all the stuff I've been getting into, all the W's that have turned into L's this week. Not far from me either. Oh yeah, bro, you're in Troy, I think you said. So that's not far at all. I've had orchestra concerts there. My close friend is also a foreign student. Yeah, the person I'm bringing on has asked to stay anonymous, but I will say I've known this person for basically my entire life, so I have been around that area because of that. I've seen the high school itself. When I saw the news, I was like, oh shit, because I think that's the only time there's been a shooting where I've actually like had some level of like firsthand experience with the location. At least there were when I was in college, there were a couple of scares, but it wasn't really like it was kind of not really a concern, you know. There's one case where someone heard someone loading a gun. They left, like, they walked in the bathroom. They heard someone loading a gun. They were like, oh shit, walked out, told somebody. The word spread around. Campus was evacuated. No casualties, no even identifying the gunman, which is kind of scary, but luckily nothing ever came of it. So, before we bring on our guests, I want to just say a disclaimer very quickly. I am not a journalist. I am not a reporter. I do not have the media training to necessarily do like objective reporting on this situation. I'm not investigative reporting. This is just an editorial between two members of the community who have been affected by this. I mean, I'm less a part of the community than our guests, but that is an important distinction to make because I don't want anybody coming in being like, "Oh, you're slandering" or whatever. Like that's we everything that's being said is being said on a personal level. We are not trying to enact some sort of agenda or anything. The experiences being shared are that of individuals, and that's all I can say. Like the everything that is being said is entirely just personal experiences, personal whatever. So, yo, what's up, dude?
Yo, what's up? Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. You're our first guest. By the way, chat, let me know if he's quiet or anything so I can adjust the levels. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, so because I don't know exactly what you're comfortable sharing, what you want to leave out. So,
Okay. Yeah. Um, I guess we'll just start at the top. I went to Oxford High School and I guess we'll leave the exact graduation year out, but I graduated from Oxford kind of semi recently, within like the last 10 years. My family, my relatives have gone through the school as well. So I would say that we had a very good, like, we've had a lot of experience with Oxford High School and the people within it, the administration, the environment, the community, the like the general feel of the school, I guess. And from what I got is that Oxford is a very isolated community in the sense that I don't even know if isolated is the right word because it is only like 30 minutes from like Troy or, the big city of Michigan.
mm-hmm.
And it's got I'd say it's like an 80-20 mix of just very rural conservative people and like a 20% mix of like liberal city people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's probably most of Michigan, honestly.
Right. Like if you're around the Metro Detroit area or any one of the big cities, it's probably about that.
Yeah, like I would say where I'm from, like when I went to school, even being as close to Detroit as we were, I would say it was still like probably 50-50.
Wow, okay. And you're way closer. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you've got that going in. So you've got, the hillbillies, the rednecks. When I was like in elementary school, there was like stories of high schoolers that had brought their like hunting rifles to school, and they got in trouble for that because like you're not supposed to bring a gun to school.
Yep.
But they weren't like intending to cause harm. Had just gone hunting at like 4 a.m. prior to class.
Hmm.
So Oxford has like like we I don't know, like they're familiar with
There's
the
a gun
guns.
culture.
Yeah, there's a gun culture. There we go. Because it's an American thing to have guns.
Good
So
old
like
Michigan
everybody out
boys.
here. Yeah, good old Michigan boys. So, and I was raised with guns, so like I have respect for guns, and the way that I've recently kind of been able to like put it into easy words for a lot of people to understand is there was, back in the day there was swords and there was knights and like marauders or barbarians. So the knights would, dispel justice with their sword and they wouldn't just be walking around hacking and slashing people, but then there's like barbarians who were just like quote unquote evil, and they would pillage and rape. So it's like, the sword isn't making either one of those people good or bad. It's the decisions that they make with said gun, in my opinion. And that's just and everybody's entitled to their own. But that's the way that I was taught, and that's the way I think a lot of people should be aware of the facts. But so when I went to Oxford, there was like a lot of talk of like, oh, what would happen if there was a school shooter? You know, what like where does he start? Where does he end? Is he like what like how bad could it be? And my thoughts were always like it wouldn't be the worst. I don't know how to without saying sounding extremely insensitive, but like it wouldn't be the most horrific tragedy in the world because just
Right.
because of the way that the high school is built, it was built in like 2006 or 2008. So it's like got that Columbine thought in mind. Like it's not a two it's like the largest one-story high school in all of Michigan or something, or
I think even the
like
country.
yeah, like it's one of the biggest one-level schools in the country, and like there's a lot of long hallways. They intentionally built curved hallways to make sure that like if an event did happen like that, that there wouldn't be just like long pathways for them to get multiple
Right.
casualties.
And even the
With
thing
that,
with this situation especially is like as far as like gun control goes, I'd say this is like one of the best case scenarios. Like he didn't have an AR-15, he had a handgun. Like you're saying, the school's designed with this stuff in mind. So it's kind of like, and even with gun control when it comes to mass shootings, the idea isn't like you're still going to have mass shootings. Even countries with well regulated guns still have mass shootings, but in this case it's about harm reduction, because if those things weren't in place, if he did have like an AR-15, or if there were those long hallways, like it would have been a lot worse. But the thing is it still happened,
yeah,
and
okay.
that's kind of the issue.
Yeah, I think, and with it going, with you saying it, like it still happened, there's a lot of talk, like in the last 2 days, about the parents getting charged by the prosecution, and the prosecutions actually brought charges on the teen's parents, and I think that they each got 4 counts of manslaughter.
Hmm.
And like it's come out now that they like after searching through his phone on the 21st of November, which would have been the Tuesday. So that the 21st was a week exactly before he shot up the school. And he was caught searching for ammo in class and then reported to the office. And the office called the mom. And the mom just texted her son. And I don't think she even like answered the school's call. She just listened to the voicemail and then texted him, LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught.
That's not good.
So no, that's very red flag.
Yeah.
Literally a week before this happened. So when I first heard this news, I was the only thoughts in my head were his parents failed him and the school failed the children that they're, entitled to protect, like the other students, and like the school failed the perpetrator. Like this kid should have never gotten this far. Like he
Right.
should have like there and apparently as more news comes out, like he was getting talked to. They were trying to take action upon like his warning signs because there was like another thing where a note was found on his desk and the teacher like was freaking out because it like hold on, I got it in my notes. He like said like the thoughts won't stop and like there will be blood raining and stuff and like pictures of guns like pistols and stuff, so like this kid was fucked up. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
think you can avoid that fact. He was like fucked up and he needed help and he wasn't getting the proper help, which goes back to like my experience with Oxford because I got broken up with sophomore year and came back junior year and they pulled me out of class in like the middle of class and I had to go talk to the guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor is like, "So I've heard, you've been feeling kind of down." And I was like, "Who the fuck is talking to the guidance counselor?" But like apparently somebody had like told her I was like feeling down, and they just like took me out of class, made me feel like really alienated. I don't even know if that's the right word, but they made me feel like you're taking me out of class. I got to be doing classwork, and now I just want to go back to class so I don't have to like miss out on any more work. I just remember that being like an interesting way of like being dealt with because like they were worried about me, but like I just remember after that meeting that I hated the school way more than like I felt helped.
Right. That actually reminds me of when I was in college. I think the first year, because I was in the dual enrollment program, we had a separate class specifically for our program, and they had like there's a whole aspect of it of like getting us familiar with the college, with the resources, and there was one class where they had the campus police come in and talk to us. And one of the things I remember them saying was they were like, if you know someone is like depressed or sad, make sure you come and talk to us so we can go and deal with them before something happens. And I thought that was a really weird way to respond to that. Like your immediate response to someone being sad is to go and make sure that there's nothing they're going to do that might make you liable instead of actually trying to help them.
Yeah, like it I mean, this goes back to like a very broader issue that I think we're going through currently and like with the whole social media age is that like it they said that because they had to remove like liability from themselves, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
And so it really should be on like if you see somebody who's acting sus, why don't you just go like talk to them? Why don't you like try and be friends with them? If they like maybe they are crazy and you don't really know what that person's thinking until you actually talk to them. But like the person who I believe like reported me to the office, I hadn't talked to that person in like over a year. So I don't like it was like over the summer and then a few months. So like I don't know how they thought like they had no idea how I was doing, how I was feeling, and I was just, a little upset that I got broken up with. Like
right.
I wasn't planning on shooting up the school, but like it never even came across my mind.
And even
Like
then, like at that point, it would probably just be like reopening the wounds, and it's not going to help anything if a guidance counselor is pulling you out and being like, "Oh, are you okay?"
yeah, and it's like it pulling you out during class, and then you go back to class, and it's the all ooh, why'd you go to the office, and everybody has to know because like what else is going on in class, It's like it's hot drama.
Exactly.
But there's also like how do I say this? There's been incidences that are like adjacent to this. Like in my grade, there was a girl who was in like the remedial classes and she like had a lot of friends within that class group and she like there was some shit that went on like the guy she liked didn't like her back and he liked this other girl, so she like made a list of all the people she was going to like hit, and she like started making pies with rat poison in them
What
and
the
like
fuck?
started trying to deal them out to people at school. And it's like, yeah, I
Jesus.
mean, it's like, I mean, if we want to be a little jokey here, that's like the women's school shooting, but
Much more passive aggressive.
yeah, yeah. So, so there's that, and then even prior to that, like when my oldest sibling went to the school, there was like a race war, like kind of brewing, and there was like a lot of good old country boys, and they started like Oxford became a school of choice in like 2008ish, I think. So they started busing Pontiac kids into the school, and to be honest, that's a very stark difference from Pontiac to Oxford. Like Oxford is a town of 3,000. It's predominantly white. It's like lower middle class, mostly poor people even, and then there's just like scattered rich people out in the woods. So it's like I can't imagine it'd be very easy to adjust for those kids. And then on top of it, there's dudes in the parking lot like waiting for them and shit, and they were like trying to beat them up, and they had like a huge brawl in the parking lot. Like, there's been a lot of issues at Oxford, and it seems to be a pattern of they deal with things way too late, and they don't have like a proper avenue of like a proper route of how to deal with certain like kids. Like they just like allow things to fester, it seems, and then like because you can only do so much like within laws and like rules,
Right.
but th- like a lot of like I don't really blame the school that much because the more I'm hearing and the more I'm like seeing the news, the more it seems like the school was trying to take action. Like his parents were in there to like the week before and the week like the day before it happened. No, they were there the day it happened, the day before it happened, and the week like prior. So they were like meeting with the school constantly about their son. I think a lot of the like I'm glad that charges are being brought up against the parents because it sounds like they enabled this to happen more than the school did.
Right. They were creating the environment that made him that way to begin with.
Yeah, I'm not it's still breaking, so there's new evidence and from the investigation coming out every day, but I'd like to know what those parents were saying to him. I can't imagine being a parent and just like indoctrinating your son to like be a school shooter and like that's your goal. But there's crazier things out there, so maybe that's what these parents did and they were trying to make a statement, or like they really didn't know what their son was going through. But I don't think that's true because she was like when it happened and like the news broke out on the day it happened, she like texted her son at 1:20, which is like right before he got apprehended or like right when he got apprehended, like don't do it. She texted him that. So like she knew it was like possible and like happening.
Right. I mean, I'm sure that to some degree it might be a level detachment between generations because I think that for probably their generation, it was normal to be that type of way, especially if they're part of that, kind of hillbilly, hyper conservative demographic that's out there in Oxford. But they don't understand, like you said, with the technology, it's so much easier for our generation to get radicalized like that, or even the generation behind us, where, there are so many avenues online where even if you're like somewhere in that area of the spectrum, it's really easy to go even farther through like forums for like alt right shit or like incel shit, and you have kids who would probably not go so far gone to do something like this. They just kind of end up toughing it out and getting over it as they get older, but instead it gets amplified through these different communities that they end up in. And if the parents are not addressing that, or they don't have the ability or the perspective to address that and realize that it's going to become that level of a problem, then this thing could potentially happen, especially if the school doesn't have the resources. And like you said, it's probably not the school's fault to some degree, but it's a thing to think about. If we did have proper funding for schools to deal with these issues, to actually have counselors that have the proper training to not just other kids who seem to be depressed, but actually find ways to get them proper treatment and give them proper accommodations to help them actually get better instead of amplifying the issue or just putting a band-aid on it to avoid having liability over it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Oxford isn't an underfunded school. Like since I've been there, there's been like proposals to like renovate it. They've gotten like blue turf, which costed like $2 or $5 million or some shit. So like Oxford, like, and they had a fundraiser for that. Like Oxford is not a poor community, like is not like a poor district so much as it seems to be like an allocation issue where they just put their money into wrong things. Like they
Right.
got a big sign in the pool area. I don't know if you watched like the footage of the day of coverage, they were like calling the south entrance the main entrance, and that's not true, which is like a whole other thing that I'd like to get into. But like I think it's in like the way they allocate their money is not correct because they really should be putting it into like the teachers and stuff because post COVID apparently a lot of the teachers that I knew that were still there had like quit or retired because they were worried about the pandemic and they didn't want to like, I don't know the specifics, but maybe they didn't want to teach online or something. But apparently they've got a lot of new teachers, and that means that they're probably not well versed in dealing with kids. And then the guidance counselor that I had, she was like in her 70s. And
Hmm.
like I don't think a person in their 70s could even remotely relate to somebody who was born like in the 90s, that who has grown up with technology. Like she's not well versed in social media or what that means to a kid. Like I'm sure this like the shooter, like in high school, I didn't have a lot of followers on my social medias, and like when I was younger, yeah, that like kind of stung. I didn't have as many friends or whatever, quote unquote, like everybody else did, and I didn't really care. But like he was 15, and like that's really young. Like he was the same age that like I was when I was a sophomore. So like I think about like all the stuff that could have been like I think anybody could have been this kid in the right situation if they had these parents, if they had like his like brain chemistry, like they like this could have been anybody, but like at the same time a lot of people go through their whole school and like never even think about shooting people up. I think the best route for the future is like there needs to be some sort of like student liaison, but they like and they already have one at the school, but I'm sure they're not like very young. They're not like clinically trained in like psychology and like child psychology, and I think something like that could really make a difference in schools if they just added like one job that was like school therapist, and like the school allowed you to come in whenever and you could make appointments whenever if that was like a thing. And it would be at the like liaison's discretion whether or not these kids were like abusing it and just like trying to cut class, to go talk to the therapist, or like kids that actually need somebody to talk to, because I've talked to my friends about it and they've had similar situations that I mentioned earlier where they were like, pulled out of class, and he was asked like the typical questions like, do your parents hit you? Are your parents around? Like the very cookie cutter questions, and none of those were like his issue. Like he just wanted to get back to class because he didn't want to be like embarrassed by everybody being like, oh, why'd you go to the office? Because it's like a drama point. It's like, oh, you went to the office. Ooh, what'd you do?
Right. And also, like, most of the time, if it's like that type of setup, kids don't want to reach out if they do need help, because then what could happen? They could go from a bad situation where they feel shitty about themselves to now they're getting into trouble, or they're being treated differently by the school because they're seen as a liability now.
Right, and they're like put on a blacklist, and I think that's like like a major issue with like the way the school system is and maybe even just like all of like criminal justice, I guess, is like once you make an issue, like once you make a mistake or like you've been considered an issue, like that fucks you for the rest of your life. Like I like knowing some gun laws, like if you went to a mental institution at some point, I don't think you can get like a concealed carry in Michigan. Like they'll look at that negatively and you have to like prove that you're not crazy or something.
Right. I mean, I definitely think that a lot of this stuff is very much an issue, like especially the generational gap when it comes to that type of thing, because I've had two like counselors, therapists, like however you want to categorize them, and one was like an older woman, and trying to talk to her about like, oh, I have like issues with like depersonalization and like socializing with people from being a YouTuber, and she basically like talked to me like I was crazy, like I was like a guy in a fucking straitjacket talking like I was Michael Jackson and acting like I had his issues or some shit. And like as a result, like I didn't really get any help from that. And I had another guy who was like a younger guy in his 20s, maybe 30s, who understood all that stuff. And when I talked to him, he actually helped me a lot and helped me work through a lot of the issues I was having. So I don't think that it's a thing where necessarily if you're over a certain age, you're not going to be able to help, but there is a
Right.
certain level of like a lot of these therapists, they've been certified for years and they don't. I don't think that they really. I don't think it's like a part of their job that they consider to like actually be able to relate to the people they're talking to. Like they have a set rubric of things that they need to check through, and if they check through that and everything they think that everything's good, then they just kind of move on. But like I think a big thing is that checklist has expanded over the years, and they're not even there are issues that they aren't even thinking of. Like I think that like a lot of therapists who are that age might not even consider how radicalizing being online can be, or being on social media can be, or even like the level of how like alienating that can feel. Because a kid like this, potentially like when we were younger, like before high school even, I mean maybe even in high school, like you leave school and then you've left school, like you're not still there, but like the social aspect has become so ingrained in online culture to where like you're always at school, and if you feel alienated at school, I think that for some kids it's really hard to find a circle that they don't feel alienated in, because that dynamic just always follows them.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. Is that like the whole like you can't leave school anymore thing, and it's like yeah, I mean that is a thing, but like you'll see people posting their Snapchat stories like oh they're hanging out with so and so or they're going to this party, like you didn't get invited. Like I wish I could have friends like that, but it's like I saw this like dumb shit post on, back in the day, and it was like everybody's posting their highlights, Like everybody just posts the best part of their lives, and I think that's like that goes into like the whole guidance counselors that are like too old, not to say that like, you can't learn the internet because there's plenty of like gamer grandpas out there playing WoW and shit.
Right.
So like and that's an old game. But like there it's not impossible for somebody to learn it, but it just seems like a lot of the people, like you said, never put in the time, care to like learn about how to deal with some of these newer issues. And that's why I think when it comes to certain things like child psychology within the context of a school, like it should definitely be somebody who's like not very far removed from school, because if you get like a 60-year-old teacher who went to fucking school in, you know, the 70s, it's not really like indicative of the times now. Like there is a lot of social reform in the 70s, and there's like, a big social movement going on now. So like I guess there's that, but like there's also social media, there's like a constant news cycle that there wasn't in the 70s. Like it's a completely different time now. And I think the only way to, keep up with the times is to keep younger people in the mix.
Right. I think even a big thing is like one example, which is kind of like trailing off a bit, but like one example is video game addiction is something that's like only just now starting to become actually taken seriously in mental health, because like we're just now seeing the point where people who are that age who dealt with video game addiction in their lifetime are starting to go into psychology like that.
That's the reason why you think is that like psychology, like people who have that issue are like going into the field to like
Well,
make sure it's
do you know who Dr. K is?
yeah,
Like he mentions a lot that when he was like going into school and like going into addiction therapy specifically, and said that he wanted to specialize in video game addiction, a lot of his superiors and a lot of his like mentors were saying that's not a field that's like worth going into. But now like look at where he is now. He's created basically an entire foundation around it and has like a ton of
right.
clients specifically for that. I think he even said like he had some superiors who were like kind of like a little more wise and were saying like no, this is going to be an issue that's going to be like more of a topic within our field soon, like as people your age start to go like come into the field. I think that we're also probably starting to see something like that with social media, but also like again, like they're not, a lot of these schools, sometimes it's an underfunding issue, sometimes it's a allocation issue where they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a new football stadium. Meanwhile, the teachers aren't getting paid, and there's a 80-year-old psychologist in the office who doesn't know how to help these kids.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Like this is the only thing that's happened in Michigan like of relevancy to a school since like 1910. So like
I think there
I
was
think.
one in I think there was one in like 2017 at CMU.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it was like a kid who like his parents were there for like some sort of issue, and then like he killed his parents and then killed himself on campus.
Oh, okay. You know what? That does sound familiar.
Yeah, but other than that,
That's
I
from
don't think there
before.
was anything aside from like I mentioned when the stream started, like at Macomb there was a thing where someone went into the bathroom and heard someone loading a handgun, then left and reported it, and then they evacuated, but that wasn't really a thing to begin with.
That was like a. Did that actually happen?
It
That
happened,
was.
but like they never
It didn't
found.
become a thing.
Yeah, it it could have potentially been a thing, but if it would have been, they avoided it by evacuating everyone and like taking care of it before it was gonna be an issue. They never found who it supposedly had the
Okay, I
gun,
see.
but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's like a perfect situation though, but like that reminds me when I was a senior in high school, there was a bomb threat that had gone out the night before, and then everybody showed up to school, and I'm like walking around, with my friends, and they're like, "Did you hear about the bomb threat?" And I'm like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah, somebody was gonna blow up the school today," and they said, "Don't come." And I was like, "Why the fuck are we here?" And I was just like thinking about that, and I was like, I don't want to be here. Like, if I was told this, I wouldn't have showed up today. Like, this is fucked up. And,
yeah,
that same exact thing could have happened to, like, and, like, somebody could have actually blown up the school. And then, like, I left, and then everybody else started leaving. Like, by the end of the day, there was only a few people in the school, but, like, I just remember being insanely pissed off at the school. Like, how the fuck are you gonna let, like, I think it was something like 1,400 kids or something were in like in the school at the time, and it's like, how are you gonna let that be like even allow that to happen? Like, how are you gonna let that many kids go to school the next day, even if it is just a meaningless threat? Like, you got to do your due diligence on it, and like if you do your due diligence on it and you don't think it's an issue, how about you like inform people that like, hey, we investigated this threat. We don't think it has any base. We think somebody's just frustrated and we're dealing with it currently. And like
right.
that would be a lot more reassuring to for me and I think as a parent, but I don't have kids, but like I think that would make me feel comfortable with sending my kids to school. But like once I told my mom that, she was like, "Yeah, I'll come pick you up. Like that's fine." I know there's been a lot of investigation, like a lot more is coming out, and they were like talking to this kid's parents, but like that could have like been like a similar situation to like what happened the other day.
I
Like,
mean, when
if
I was researching the situation, I saw a segment from Channel 4 like right after, and they were saying something very similar where there were a bunch of kids spreading around a screenshot of a Snapchat basically saying that basically saying like I'm gonna shoot up the school tomorrow from the kid, or like I'm gonna shoot these people, and they started sharing it around, and a bunch of kids were like, I'm not going to school. And like they were like interviewing like a kid who was like, yeah, I didn't go to school, and then I found out my friend went, and I went, like I got up and got dressed and like went and grabbed him because I didn't want him to be in there if something happened. And then something did happen. And there is kind of a question of like, what did the school know, and like what did they do or not do?
Yeah, and I don't know. It's hard to find any information about this since it is so recent, but like there is the whole like issue of like a deer head being found in the courtyards of the school, but they said that that was an unrelated thing that's to a different school, and that could be true. But my sister who was following the case with like one of her friends cuz her friend's little brother went to the school or something, there was like a bottle, like there was a piss bottle, which is kind of funny, but in the context is a little weird. And there was like a dead bird head and a note, like in a jar as well, like found that another day. And it's like nothing even close to the like those kinds of things were ever an issue when I went to school. It was like so and so passed so and so's nudes around, and it was like never anything to like people are being like weird satanic-y and like I think it comes down to like the what you were saying earlier about like the radicalization of people, and like this kid was so young, he didn't have any guidance from his parents, like getting radicalized online. He's like 15 years old. Like he's obviously had these kind of like alienation feelings for like years, maybe even since 6th grade.
Right.
It's like somebody should have helped him. It should have been his parents first and then the school, and they both failed him. I don't know where you go from there. Like should the government help with that kid? And it's like that's a lot, you know? Like, do you call CPS on those parents since they were like not taking action on their kid and you just like let the government sort it out?
Right. I think that also something to mention, because like part of it too is like I've noticed that part of like with these issues, because with both this and like I don't know if you know about this, but the school district that I went through like a couple of years ago, a lot of kids from like my when I was going through school there came out with all these stories of like sexual harassment and like being like sexually abused by other students, older students, and all this. And they went to administrators, and the administrators did nothing. And then, like, once those kids graduated and like all got together, they ended up suing the school district, and there was like a huge thing about it. And like something I noticed both with that and with this that kind of like contrasts with like my experience when I was in college is like I think that a lot of times administrators just don't want to listen to the students or take them seriously. Cuz like when you're in college it's a little bit different cuz the students are actual adults. So like a lot of times like the professors and the faculty kind of see them to some degree as equals beyond like their rank. So it's like if a kid comes up and they're like, "Hey, I heard someone loading a gun in the bathroom," they're like, "Oh shit." But if, let's say the same thing happens at high school, they're probably going to be a little bit more skeptical and they're probably going to be like, "Oh, this kid's trying to start some shit or trying to like pull a prank or whatever. Which I think that that might be part of the issue too is like how do you get administrators and people in charge to actually take these kids seriously? Because I think that probably plays into it.
Yeah, that's got to like I think that's is that just human nature though? Like people who are older adults and like in a position of authority like that just, they don't take kids seriously. Like a lot of those people usually have families themselves. So like I don't really get how somebody in like, a principal position doesn't take like somebody coming to you with an issue seriously, cuz like what else are you fucking doing? Like what are you doing as a principal? Are you grading papers? No, like you're probably doing like a lot of like paperwork and such, but there's like also like there's usually at most bigger schools like over 1,000 kids, there's like a dedicated like uh they had like a dean of students is what they called it at my school. So it was like she dealt with all the kids, and like when
Like an
she was
advocate.
there, yeah, like when she was there, she was really good. Like I would, get sent to her office and she'd be like, "What were you doing?" And I was like, "I was pretending to throw paper around." And she was mad at me. She was like, "Just don't do that again." And I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty reasonable." And I just like hung out with her and she just like checked in on me. And it was like just a weird occurrence, but like, it really does like come down to like it has to be the a very right person for the job, because like how do you like make a branch to like get these people to understand kids? And it's like you just got to get somebody who understands kids. It has to be a very specific person, and if that person isn't doing their job, they have to be like fired. Like if they're just not gonna, if they get any complaints about that person and like they're not following up with like kids, like not like dealing with reports or whatever, they like should be fired. Like I think it's a very simple thing, cuz like I mean in this situation they were like talking to the kid prior, and like they were talking to his parents and like doing all these steps, but like if they had 3 meetings and then he shot up the school. So I think everybody who talked to those parents and was like responsible for dealing with this family should just get fired. Like they let this happen. Like
Or at
they
least
didn't
have
deal
there
with
be
it.
some sort of investigation on it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely an investigation. And if the investigation like shows like non-reporting or like delaying, or I was looking up stuff and it was like on it was on stop sexual assault in schools, because like you said about your school that you graduated from, like all those kids came out and like had all these stories about how the school didn't help them. Like I've had a few girlfriends, and from then we went to Oxford, and like they've told me like, yeah, I was like dragged into the bathroom by my boyfriend at the time, and like he wouldn't let me leave, and they were just like, she like went to the office and told them, and they were like, didn't really believe her or something, or like, they were like, it's been a while since I remember, or since the story was told to me, but like I remember hearing stuff like that, and like, that stuff definitely needs to be dealt with, but like I don't know if it's necessary. Like it needs to be dealt with, and it's not like there just needs to be an investigation. They need to do their due diligence when it comes to like helping these kids when they like feel pressured. They're like, they feel like they're having issues, and that's like what happened with this kid. He like didn't have somebody to go to because obviously his parents don't really fucking seem so
Like attentive.
like, yeah, like they're not very good parents, is what it seems, because they let their kids shoot up a school. Most parents wouldn't like.
It's
I feel like
kind of a
you
failure
don't
there.
raise a school. Yeah, like I feel like you don't raise a school shooter. Like that. That's just like you have to like do a lot wrong to get to that point.
I mean, that's
And
kind of why I'm saying like investigation, because there are some. I think there might be some cases where it's like, maybe you end up with Jeffrey Dahmer as a kid and you try and help them,
right.
but like they're just
But even Jeffrey Dahmer, when he was in high school, there was like no signs of him being crazy. Like he was just an outcast, and he would get shit faced at school. Like he was like a 15-year-old, 16-year-old dude just walking around with a cup of liquor in like Minnesota. Like he wasn't, carving in, or like he wasn't like writing down in notes like how to fucking get a like sex slave, and like drawing that shit out, and maybe he was, but nobody ever found out. So like he obviously didn't show signs of it then, and like maybe it was like, and it's like when he's older he turned into that. But like this kid was showing signs of it, and they like allowed him to just keep coming to school, and like not like watching him, or like, why, if there was like a deputy at the school and they know that he's making threats about like blah 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 ammunition and stuff, like they knew that all these things that are coming out now, like he looked up the ammunition in class or whatever, and like they got reported to the school, and they talked to him about that, and then like they found some like pictures of shit like blood will rain and shit, and they talked to his parents about that, and it's like there's a deputy in the school that apprehended him in like 5 minutes or whatever, but like maybe he was like that guy should have been like watching that guy like constantly. Like he should have like known his schedule. He should have been like walking around with him, and like if that kid was an issue, he should have been, be getting watched. So like if he did, just come out of the bathroom with a gun, the guy could have either, tackled him or just shot him, cuz like that's what I imagine he's there to do, right? Like he's a cop on the school to make sure that if like any issues a cop needs to deal with, he's like immediately there, right?
right. And honestly, now that I think about it, like how is like getting reported repeatedly not like grounds for like expulsion or at least like a long ass suspension?
Right. And especially with like the winter break coming up and online schools the way it is now, like how could you not just be like like take a break from school or something, can schools do that? Can they force you to take a vacation, or like, they do have to just suspend you, but like it goes back to that whole thing of like once you get suspended you're marked or whatever, but like I don't know. I don't know if that's how that works, or if colleges look negatively on
I
that,
mean,
but like
at that point, yeah, fucking mark him. Like if you're I think there's a certain point where
oh yeah,
you have to
for
stop
sure,
being
yeah.
nice. Like, oh, you're looking
No,
up
yeah, yeah.
ammunition in class and writing notes about killing your classmates. Maybe at that point you have to reap what you sow. Like you've been sowing a lot, you need to reap it at a certain point, and if it
Yeah,
ends
for
up
sure.
like it's your fault at that point. Like you have to take responsibility. If you're acting like a psycho and then you get treated like a psycho, like that's kind of on you
Yeah,
because
but I mean, the kid's so young, like 15. Like I don't know. I was the same age. I started. That would be like what?
I mean, I guess in that case, it's like you have to start actually disciplining them before it escalates to that point. Because I'm sure, like based on everything that's going on, it seems like there were a lot of signs where it's like it.
Right, and there had to be something like the year prior that he'd like had done like or something that had happened to him recently for him to like go down this dark rabbit hole. Unless he had like unless COVID had like lockdown really just affected him that much, I couldn't think of like something else that's really just brewing in a 15-year-old's mind that's just like, I need to shoot up the school. Like, yeah, you're right. He should have been stopped before and like intervened at some point earlier to this, not just like days leading up to it, because I'm sure there
Right.
was warning signs. And it's like that's a kid that does need to get marked. But like I had a situation in middle school where we did this thing called text time, and we would just like walk around the gym listening, like blaring like pop music, and we would just like walk around the gym. And me and my buddy, who was happened to be the superintendent's son, uh, like we had this bit where we would pretend to be spies and we'd like jump over tripwires in the hallways and like shoot each other and pretend to be spies or whatever. But it was funny, and I fucking see him across the gym, and I like point a finger gun at me, and he shoots me back, and I like pretend to get shot, and then the vice principal saw that and like that was like that's unacceptable, go to the office right now. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, that's we do not accept that kind of behavior at school. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, freaking out because I'm scared I'm gonna get in trouble. And I sit in the office all day, literally from like second hour to like the to like when the buses are loading up. And like she walked in the office and was like, "You're still here?" And I was like, "Yeah, you never talked to me." And she was like, "Okay." And then like she like brought me into her office and gave me like some apology about how she forgot me in the office. And it's like, you know like that's horrible. Like I didn't get really punished for it. I got rewarded almost because the next day she brought me down to the office and like gave me candy because she left me in the office all day. And it was like, yeah, I missed my math class, I missed my geography class. Like, you just fucked me. Like, you didn't help me at all. You didn't even get to the bottom of why I did that. You never even asked me about it. You didn't bring the other kid in. You didn't give me any chance to defend myself. And you just kind of like screwed my whole fucking school day up. So like I had that like edge towards the school the whole time because I got fucked. Like,
Right.
I don't know.
That is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad had a long conversation with the principal, and I'm pretty sure that guy's no longer with the school, but like that guy was a fucking reek.
Yeah.
He was talking about how like it was like super, that's kind of a threat of violence on people, and he's like, "What do you mean? Like kids are walking, like my dad's like, kids are walking around with pencils all the time. Like what's stopping them from sharpening one up and stabbing somebody in the neck with it?" And he's like, "Oh, that seems a lot like that seems ridiculous, mister."
I
And
mean,
it's like, well,
to be fair,
it's
when
a
I was
finger
in high
gun.
school, we used to do shit like that. Like in the back of
Like
my
stab each other.
oh yeah, like in the back of my
Yeah,
English
but
class, we would just stab each other.
hell yeah, dude. And like you didn't fucking tattle. Like
Yeah.
like you were all boys. You were doing it with your boys, right? Or were you just doing this to random people? Because that's even funnier.
Oh, I remember at one point I had like a safety pin or something. I would just go up to my friends and I would just stab them with it, like, and they would be like, "What the fuck was that?"
Holy shit. See, and you didn't ever shot up the school, and that's just a good bit.
Yeah.
You're just having a laugh with your mates.
I mean, like, and
And
part of
like,
it too is like I remember I had a friend in middle school who actually I don't remember if it was middle school or high school, but like his friend gave him like brass knucks they had from home, and then like he had those on his person, not even during school, but like at an event after school, and he got suspended for the rest of the year. Like, how
holy
is
shit, for like bringing them to a football game?
I think it was a basketball game, but like
Right.
either way, like
Jeez.
just for that.
Yeah, see, like, there's like an issue with schools. Like, I think it's like a zero tolerance thing where they take like everything way too seriously, and the serious stuff they don't seem to take serious enough.
Yeah,
Like with the stories we've just said, that like they cared about like my finger gun, but they didn't care about the girls getting like fucking, raped. So it's
right,
like, how do you even begin, like, how do you have that mindset to where it's like, oh, finger gun is bad, but like girls accusing guys of sexual misconduct is just, we shouldn't deal with that because that's just like boys being boys, I guess. But like, to a degree, there is some of that, and it's like those dudes just need to be like talked to and like intervened with. Like they need to be like probably reprimanded depending on the like issue, but if like that kid needs to be talked to, and like they can't just like not do anything about it.
right. I remember when I was in school, like there was definitely issues with bullying throughout school where it's like not even necessarily with me. Like I was bullied a little bit in like elementary school, but then like middle school on, I pretty much figured out like how to be funny, and that kind of saved my ass a lot when it came to that stuff. But like I had friends who got bullied who were having like people harassing them and shit, or like even stalking them, and they would go to the principal and be like, "Hey, this is going on," and they would be like, "Oh, well, we can't really do anything until like something like extreme happens, like if someone like kills himself or something like that, like, but before then, like, we can't really do anything." And it's like, what the fuck, what's even the point of like all these anti-bullying campaigns if you're not even gonna do anything?
Right, like if you're gonna have anti-bullying campaigns, you gotta back it up with, resources, materials, and like people to deal with these other people. Like you can't just, it's an optical thing, which like if we're gonna get into fucking optics, this is like the school, I think as a superintendent, he was there, and like he showed up to like say answer some questions, and he didn't really have anything to say. And I think he should have just said that, like, I don't have anything to say, but I'm shocked and devastated. But like somebody asked him, and he was like, I'm shocked and devastated. But like the way it looked, it like didn't seem very, like, he was shocked and devastated for his job, is how I felt from when he said it. But like,
Mm-hmm.
of course I might have that skewed viewpoint towards him because like I see it from an administrative perspective. Like if I was working at that school, I'd be like, yeah, I'm fucked. Like there's no way the board or the PTA is gonna like allow me to still be here, and
Right.
like unless I do some fucking crazy shit. But like he wasn't, he didn't say a lot. He didn't have much to say, and like optically that looks bad for the school.
I
And
mean, I'm
then,
sure there is some level of like human element to it where it's like, damn, I really fucked my job up, and now like this shit happened, and like it's going to have a bunch of families lost their, or at least several families lost their kids, lost valuable members of the community and lost life, and that's on
yeah,
his
like that one
hands.
football player who was like the best, he just got on some Michigan football list, and like, that kid could have had like an NFL career.
I heard that
And
kid ran straight at the shooter to try and stop him.
oh no, yeah, oh wow. Yeah, and yeah, so like, and in my head, maybe that guy was going after that kid because, like, he's like the star of the school and everybody loves him, and that kid just like wanted to be him so bad and just like couldn't deal with it or whatever. But
Yeah. I mean, I remember when
I,
I was like really young, like probably like early middle school, like I saw kids like that and I was like, yeah, fuck that guy. Like, why is everyone like him? And then like as I got older, I kind of figured out like, oh, it's like maybe some people are just okay people and people like them and they might seem kind of like jerks at times, but ultimately if you get to know them and you don't like come off as like having like that in built-in resentment when you interact with them, they're pretty cool people.
yeah, and my friend's mm, my friend's little brother's friend was one of the people who was shot, and he also like stepped in front of somebody else to like make sure they didn't get shot, but he ended up like dying for it. And like I think a lot of kids are like very prepared for it. Like we've had the drills, we've both had the drills. Like we know what to do, and like everybody's talked about it, I feel like. And like it's just like a cultural thing with America's like school shooters, but like
Right.
it's definitely like,
I mean, maybe there is some hope in the sense that it seems like a lot of people in our generation and like younger seem to actually take it a lot more seriously than the people who are currently running things. And maybe as time goes on, as those with that type of perspective and kids coming into power as they get older, ending up in those positions of power, maybe we'll start to see something actually change because like it genuinely seems like a lot of times like the schools care more about, like you said, a lot of optics and stuff like that, and they don't really care as much about, they care about their liability and shit, and they don't care as much about it doesn't seem as personal for them because like for the kids it's like, yeah, I don't want to go to school and get shot, whereas like for the administrators it seems like it's just uh they don't, it doesn't seem like as personal of an issue for them.
Yeah, and you're right. I think like Dr. K and Healthy Gamer, like he knew that that was an issue. So like you're right. I think change is coming. Like I think it really sucks that it has to happen in like every state for it to become like an actual issue. But like, a lot of people don't realize that things can happen and they don't really care about them until it does happen to them. And like that's an issue with people, but like, how do you stop that? But I think, change is coming. People as they get older will like make the changes that they, had issues with when they were a kid cuz like I'm sure Dr. K had video game addiction. So like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, kids who like were having school shooter thoughts or like had a friend who killed himself because of bullying are like going to go to like administrations and,
Or even
they're
just
going to
kids
actually
who,
be able to do
even
help.
just kids who don't want to go to school and or currently are going to school and they're constantly worried that like maybe there might be a kid who just brings a gun to school and they just don't want that worry to transfer over to the next generation.
Yeah, like everything builds on top of each other. And like the reason that Oxford is a one level school is because, it's I think it had that in mind is because it's like a lot safer and it's a lot easier to navigate for people and like if there is an emergency, it's a lot easier for them to get like a gurney in there and pull people out. So like that was in 2008, so I'm sure schools that are like more modern have that like school shooter thought in mind. So like the door isn't, directly in face of like the entire classroom. It's not in view of it, it's off to the side. But that's like architecturally, but like it seems to be like now it's needs to be like a personal issue, like like we've already got it figured out architecturally. We've
Yeah,
got all the like fail safes and with that, but like we don't have any like system to help people. So we
right.
need to like work on that because I remember there was like all these bullying campaigns like you said and they don't really like mean much. Like if they don't have any sort of system to help the kids, like what's the point of it?
Right. And I think that's a whole separate issue is I feel like a lot of the stuff in school is just like a lot of the moral stuff they tend to feel very empty and very optic. Like even when in like middle school, I remember like with racism and stuff, like with the when they were teaching about civil rights, I had like a cynical view about it because it felt like it was being preached. And then like as I got older, I realized on my own like yeah, these issues are really important, but not necessarily in the way that they were telling me. Like, for example, like with MLK, I think a lot of people don't like MLK or have like a certain attitude towards him because the way that they teach MLK in schools is very sanitized, and either people think, oh, like he didn't actually do anything, or he was like too passive, or they have like that alienation and like that cynical view on that stuff because of the way that it's taught. And then you like grow up and realize, like, oh yeah, no, like MLK was actually like a pretty radical guy. If you actually go and like look at his stuff, like oh, he was actually like saying stuff like the only way to solve racism and like discrimination in the country is to restructure the entire economic system, which was what ultimately got him assassinated. And like they don't teach you that shit because I think to some degree it's like they want to keep it safe and they want to stay within this safe zone without actually like trying to challenge the issues within society, but they still want to like pretend like they care about those issues.
Yeah, and that, like the bullying thing. And at Oxford, like we didn't really do much like civil rights stuff, which is like funny now because it's become such a very big political issue is like but I didn't really learn much about MLK and I still haven't because I don't know, I just never really looked into it, I guess. But I think the way schools are structured is like an issue. I see what you're saying like they have to they want to stick to an agenda, right? Like they want to like make sure kids are learning what they're learning, but I think I don't know, it's with school they obviously don't prepare you for like life, it seems.
Right.
Like they're definitely preparing you for like a college curriculum, but like it's even when you get to college, public school is nothing like what college is. So
Right. Because college,
it's
I'd honestly say I think college is like they don't do that. Like if you go to a college like you go into a college like political science class, they're going to teach you that shit how it actually was. And like a lot of the times the professors don't have like any incentive to like try and put on a front or like put on a moral grandstand. They're just going to say shit the way it is.
I don't know if you can say that though, because I think a lot of people who go into like a very, you know, a soft science definitely think that they have like the, you know, they have the good opinion on it, right? And I
Right.
think like what really like they really should just be objective and, you know, teach greater people, like if you're a psychologist or something, like if you're teaching psychology, you should be like delving into like all of the reasons why we respect Freud modernly, like, and just go down like, and like, you know, you want to like build all, you want to start like with the history and like build off of that, and like you really just want to be objectively like objective, like you said, you want
Right.
to tell it how it is. You really shouldn't be putting your opinions into like your learning or into your teaching. You should just be specifically objective and not put any sort of like spin on it. And like I guess that it's interesting that you say that like public school is like sanitized, because like that is a way to put it, because like
Right.
going into learning about like the Vietnam War and like the shit that the CIA does, like I didn't know what the CIA does, but apparently they just like are the secret army. And
Mhm.
like Vietnam was just for opium, and it's like there's all these just like, you know, very like if now in hindsight it's very objectively just for that, and it's like
Mhm. That's why we
you
stayed in
never
Afghanistan for so long. Was the same reason.
right, we were guarding we never got the oil and we just got the opium.
Yep.
We're just guarding those fields. There's like videos of Afghan of like
Mhm.
American soldiers guarding poppy fields, like,
I will
and
say I don't think it's possible to entirely objectively teach a subject. I think there will be some level of opinion involved, but I do think that there's a big difference between like having a professor injecting some of their opinion versus like a school system where they're like actively censoring certain parts or like basically like whitewashing history to basically make it seem as though like it was different than it was, or even just like a lot of topics like even with like talking about bullying or stuff like that, they don't actually go into like the nitty gritty of it. They just put up a bunch of posters and call it a day.
then like I've been getting into like ancient Egyptian stuff lately, and like how like the Egyptians, like to this day we still don't exactly understand how the Egyptians actually cut those blocks in the way that they did, because the pyramids are said to be built in like 20 years or something, but like in all the methods that scientists have come up with to explain how they cut them, it's way too slow for them to have that process. And so a lot of history books, they just have like pictures of, you know, Egyptians with brass tools or bronze tools, just like chipping away at these giant granite blocks, and it's like there's no shot that that even worked that way. And the people who are into this subject more than me were saying that a lot of these books are just like putting in these pictures to just like convey a thought to them, and like because they don't have really any thought, they just kind of fill in the blanks with some of the stuff. They kind of just, you know, put in something to sell the textbook, and they just, it seems to be like people who are writing textbooks for like history are just kind of like pushing their opinions in the book and covering what they want to cover, and like leaving out a lot of stuff that, you know, I guess would, you know, should be important. Like they're not like going into like the basics and like the reasons of like this, even the Civil War. Like it's still disputed whether or not it like it was for state rights or like slavery, but it was like no, it was specifically slavery. And it's like the states right thing is like an extension of the slavery thing, because it's like it should be the state's right to not have slaves or have slaves. And it's not like so in like so it is state rights, but it's actually just slavery. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like they're teaching that in school, that it's like state rights issue, but it's actually just like a slavery issue. So like kids are going into it with like, not really knowing why Abraham Lincoln didn't run for a second term. It's because like he was unpopular post Civil War, and like everybody considered him a bad president for letting the Civil War happen. And it's like if that was like taught, people would care more about like politics. I think like if people knew the actual like reasons for things, they would be like, yeah, like I'm against this because like it's my belief, and like I have to do something about it to like make a change. If people actually are taught like what is actually happening, like they'll feel more encouraged to like actually enact change.
We've been going for about an hour. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna let you go, get on for your night, and we'll
Yeah,
go
man.
on for the rest of the show. It's a pleasure
Yeah,
having you.
right on. Yeah, thanks for having me. You have a good show.
All right, see ya. All right, so that was anonymous former student of Oxford High, and now I guess we'll get into the rest of the show. Actually, I'm gonna keep this side by side up because now we're gonna talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay, so for those of you who do not know, JoJo Part 6 is now up on Netflix, which is a big deal. They actually, from what I was hearing, mostly from Salty DK Dan, follow Salty DK Dan if you haven't already. He's a very talented voice actor, animator, content creator, all that stuff, who's also very into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Apparently, they weren't going to animate it because they didn't think that Part 6 would be popular enough, but JoJo fans are some of the craziest. However, what I want to talk about, for one, I want to just say like I very much enjoyed part 6 because like I was watching it and I didn't even realize it ended. And for JoJo, that's a really good sign. Some of the worst parts of JoJo are the parts where it drags on. Like I think that that's how I rate pretty much every part of JoJo based on like how good it is. It's like part 1, a good story if you sum it up, if you say like okay, like Jonathan Joestar, Dio, they all this stuff happens. I'm not going to spoil too much. That sounds cool in concept, but then you sit down and you try and watch it all in 10 episodes, and it's like, wow, this is really slow. And then you get to part 2, and part 2 feels like a movie. Part 2 is the same, I think it's the same length as part 1. It's been a while. But it basically just feels like a long movie. Like, it just feels like, because everything happens so well paced that it's like, wow, okay, like this is just a condensed story. And then you get to part 3. And for me personally, I think part 3 is the worst. Because part 3, they establish the story, and that feels like they really want to like just have more content there. So they started doing like one-off episodes. And they did that for like way longer than any other part. I couldn't get into part 3 because of the Monster Week formula deeper into it, but I agree with part 2 being paced well. What you're describing sounds basically how I feel. JoJo part 3 is the longest. And it's also like literally the most important story parts are the beginning and the end. And then there's like 40 episodes in between where it's just Monster of the Week, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, that was the hardest one to sit through because it was so fucking long. It's a series in it of itself, and that's also like not that interesting because they aren't doing anything. It's basically filler, and most JoJo fans will never admit that any single part of JoJo, any point in JoJo is filler, but the bulk of the middle of part 3 is just straight up filler. And then part 4, like the first half was kind of slow, and then it really picked up in the second half. Part 5 was pretty good throughout, and then part 6, like I said, I didn't even realize it was over. I didn't even realize it was done. I think there's more coming out though. I can try and like do the math based on the manga, but like I'm not well versed enough in doing that to really say for sure. But Polygon had the bright idea to give the worst take on this. Literally, what the fuck are you even like? Why would you say this? This is such a bad take. Here's the only logic I can see in this. In part 1 and 2, they don't use stands, they use Hamon. In part 3, they introduce stands. So you could say, like, okay, this is like where the series really started to find its identity. And that's a valid argument to make. However, why the fuck would you tell someone to start at part 3? For one, you are robbing them of the experience of part 2 Joseph Joestar, I maintain, is the best one. The best Joestar, if not Josuke. He is the best Joestar in his part. Also, if you only know Joseph Joestar from part 3, you're gonna not like him because he turned into a boomer, which low-key he kind of had like weird like Americanized like values in part 2 to begin with, but it was kind of charming, and then he got old and then it wasn't as charming, and he just kind of became like a weird character. I'm not reading all this, but like the take is still wrong. And part of my thing is, as a JoJo fan, I think that becoming indoctrinated in JoJo, you have to watch all of it. You have to. I mean, granted, I did skip part of part 3, but it was basically like I got to the point where I was like, dude, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna skip to the point where the story actually picks up again. And by as far as I got in, by that point, I skipped like 3 episodes. So I missed 3 one-off episodes of JoJo, and that's it. But I feel like you kind of need to watch all of it because there's like it's like a cult. You need to sit through the bad parts in order to fully appreciate how good the good parts are. First half of part 4 kind of sucks, but it establishes everything. And if you don't see all of that, then when you get to the second part, where they start bringing in fucking David Bowie and all that shit, you're not gonna fully appreciate it without that context. Like, you're not gonna fully appreciate how hard that part goes. Part of the reason why part 3 is good at all, like the saving grace, is the fact that Dio is involved. Like, part 1, they establish who Dio is. They establish the Joestar lineage. The second part, they don't even touch Dio, but they kind of like give closure to the whole Hamon power structure. And they introduce Joseph Joestar. They introduce, because like Jonathan Joestar, he was a very like white meat type of person. He wasn't as charismatic as the later JoJos. So then you bring in Joseph, who is probably the most charismatic of all the JoJos. And then he just like starts creating all this like crazy shit going forward, where he's just like a piece of shit and like doesn't take care of his kids. Also, like, Josuke is technically Jotaro's brother because Joseph is just a man whore. And it's like, you needed that kind of fuckery. You needed someone who was like that, and you needed that tone to add to the universe to go into part 3 and like have the crazy dynamic that it has. And also, you need to know who Dio is to like fully appreciate his presence in that season, or in that part rather. So it's like, why would you tell people to start part 3? Also, part 3 is just not that good. Like, for one, I think the original tweet, wherever it is, I can't find it in my thing, said like JoJo's best part is also the best part to start. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, it just straight up isn't. And honestly, I'll say this much about the new part. I think that it's really cool how, I think since part 5, I'd say even part 4, like the characters got more grounded, because I think that like there was some level of Flanderization starting to go on with the JoJos, where it's like, the first one is like, oh, he's like a good guy. Like, Jonathan is just a good guy. He's kind-hearted, and he's also like big and on fucking trend and all this fucking, he's just fucking roided up. He's a 15-year-old who looks like he's fucking a 30-year-old bodybuilder. And then like you have Joseph, and he's like the wacky one. He's like the wild card, but he's also like cunning and like all that stuff. And then you got Jotaro, and he's the cool one. And then they get to Josuke, and they're like, okay, like we've kind of run through the protagonist stereotypes. I think we need to figure something else out. And Josuke actually had like a pretty fleshed out character where he was kind of like the cool guy, but he also had like a very human element to him. And then Giorno, I'm gonna be honest, Giorno wasn't that amazing of a character. He did kind of feel like kind of a generic main character, but the other characters in part 5 really fucking drove the show. Like Mista, fucking Bruno, fucking all of them were just like really phenomenal characters. And now with part 6, I feel like Jolene is written very well. Like, she actually feels like, she doesn't feel like a stereotypical character whatsoever. And I think that's really good, because it's like, she's not like your typical like waifu, like even like girl main character. She feels human. Like, she just feels like a person who happens to be a woman. That's like really refreshing. And then like the whole bizarre aspect of the show really benefits from the fact that she's just like a normal person trying to make sense of like all the crazy bullshit. But she's also like, she's not just like a boring normal person. She's just like a normal person reacting to shit the way a normal person would. I also wanted to talk about Arcane. I want to mention that there's no heterosexual explanation for this. Watching Arcane, I'm gonna be honest, like, I didn't really get into it as much as most people did. I thought it was okay. But as someone who has kind of become known partly for talking about LGBT representation in media, I do want to kind of give my take on this. But I don't really have enough to say about it to like really justify like I'm gonna make a whole video. I'll say this though. They clearly know what they're doing. They're clearly trying to set it up as like, okay, we want people to see these two as a couple. And the arm that my brain took us to from that point, gay couple in show, also a WLW couple, instead of an MLM couple. And that led me down the rabbit hole of people keep complaining that there's a lot of WLW representation and not a lot of MLM representation. And a lot of people I've seen, especially in the comment sections of when I talk about these relationships, they tend to go in the direction, why are we not showing more MLM representation? And they tend to come to the conclusion that's more stigmatized than women loving women. And I want to give my take about it because it constantly comes up and I've never really addressed it. And here's basically what I think. I don't think it's a stigma against MLM relationships. I mean, in this case, that might be the case to some degree because this is a much more mainstream story. And that was kind of like the vibe I got from it, was it feels like a lot of animated like adventure like type stories, but it seems like they're also trying to market it more to a mainstream audience because League of Legends is super popular. So like I don't know how to really read the intention behind it. It does kind of feel like just like a marketing thing more than anything. So I don't really know if they were thinking like, oh, people love lesbians, let's throw some lesbians in there. I don't know if that was kind of the idea, but in most cases, and it might be in this case too, you tend to see most of these relationships being written by women. Steven Universe, Rebecca Sugar, of course she's going to write about her own experience. Noelle Stevenson, when they were the showrunner of Shira and the Princesses of Power, they identified as female. And I think that they were probably writing from their experiences growing up as a queer female. Again, Rebecca Sugar with Marceline and Bubblegum. Like, a lot of these couples are being written by women. I don't know if Rad Seacrest, is that how you pronounce his name? The writer for Kipo, I think he's heterosexual, but that's one of the few cases where we saw MLM representation, and probably because as a guy, he has a bit more insight to that. And I think it's less of a issue of like stigma and more of an issue of just there aren't a lot of male creators who are queer in animation. I think that's more what's going on. A coincidence combined with just a representation issue of like there aren't queer men writing in animation as much as there are queer women writing in animation, or at least show running in animation. So maybe that's kind of more where the energy should be, because I think a lot of times we just want to be like, oh, let's fucking go wild and just like blame the studios, blame the fucking establishment. Like, damn, they just don't want to show us gay men. When in reality, it's probably also just an issue of like there aren't gay men out here writing shows. And maybe that's kind of where the focus should be. Like, maybe we need to fight more for there to be more gay representation in the writer's room. Because that's usually how it starts, is you fight for representation in the writer's room and then you see it on screen. Kipo is great, but I definitely think we should have more MLM rep, and I hate the discourse about this topic because people think wanting MLM means hating women, loving women. We can have both. Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of the thing, is I have seen some people act really weird about it. I'm not gonna pretend I haven't. There does seem to be some thinly veiled, like, whatchamacallit, lesbophobia. Is that a word? I'm assuming it is. That does seem to be a bit in there in some cases. I think there are also just a lot of cases where people are like, yo, listen, like, I'm a gay dude, I'm watching cartoons, I want to see more stories about me, which is entirely reasonable. Yeah, we do need more representation, but like I said, it should be more focused on, like, I think we need to support gay creators, support gay writers, and I think that's ultimately like what it tends to be. Is there an argument that maybe we support lesbian creators more than we support gay male creators? Maybe. And maybe that's something that some people are subconsciously doing, and I think that's something that maybe there needs to be some introspection about. But I just wanted to use that as an opportunity to talk about that, because I've seen a lot of people, not even in my mentions, but in the comment sections of like videos I make where I'm like, oh, here's what we needed to do to get Lumity. And then people are like, yo, but why is there so little MLM representation? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I don't think there's like an agenda against it though. And that seems to be what it is I feel weird when people try and like discount the representation that's there because they feel like there's some sort of like agenda against men being gay. Which I mean, there needs to be more representation, but I don't want to potentially step on the representation we have because I feel like that's not productive and I don't think it's necessary. It could be a broader discussion of people associating queer rep with femininity. I mean, that's probably there too, and I think that like overall, I think masculinity in progressive circles tends to be really stigmatized in general. And I think that makes it very hard for not only gay men, but also masked non-binary people, trans men. I think that's a lot harder for them to find acceptance within progressive circles. And not only are they struggling to find acceptance there, but because they're marginalized, they also don't find acceptance in mainstream circles as well. So I think there is a bit of an issue there where we need to accept that masculinity can be healthy, not to complain about being a man. I think like a lot of times when people try and be like, oh, well, you're talking about issues of like masculinity and like hypermasculinity, toxic masculinity, complaining about like the standards of masculinity being toxic or whatever, you're just looking out for men. And it's like, yeah, I'm looking out for men, all men, trans men included. Like, here's the biggest thing. Like, I've seen self-proclaimed feminists saying that like short men aren't real men. I'm like, would you say that to a trans man? And then like, that's like the checkmate. This shit is actually like affecting marginalized people. It's not just like cis straight white dudes. Like, if you're gonna be like, oh, you have to be at least 6 feet or else you're not a real man, and you're a feminist and you're like being like, oh, well, men aren't oppressed, therefore I'm in the right. What about trans men? What about non-binary masked people? Oh shit, wait, hold on. Maybe this shit is actually affecting marginalized people. Maybe it's affecting gay men who are short and already struggle with their masculinity. Anyways, that's my my soapbox topic. I think that we've been going pretty deep into serious subjects, but now I just want to be upset in general. I want to be upset about something that isn't so controversial. Actually, this might be even more controversial. Wrestling.
Hold on a minute. What is? I got no. That can't be. Yeah, you're damn right. You can tell by the. That can't be. You can tell by the can what that is. Oh my God! Oh man! Flaming table! Flaming table! Good God! He rubs the reverse DDT through the.
What do you think happened next? Me who's short and gay? Be short and gay, King. Be short and gay. That's what I'm saying. But what do you think happened after this in the clip? It doesn't show it. It doesn't show it because Mr. Wrestling over here, owned by Barstool Sports, we already went over how they have a skewed agenda. Over here supporting the white man over here. What do you think happened after this clip? First of all, people in the chat, whoever's active, who do you think, if you looked at this, who do you think got this worse? Who do you think this affected more? Like, who do you think took the brunt of this? The guy in the black or the guy in the blue? Just write black or blue. You don't have to be specific. Just say black or blue. Who took the brunt of this? You know what happened after this? Blue. You know what happened after this? The guy in the blue rolled over and pinned the guy wearing the black pants for a 1-2-3. That's what happened afterwards. So tell me that makes sense. Tell me that makes sense. Not only that, but for the entire match, the guy in the black pants, Andrade, was beating the shit out of Cody Rhodes. I have never used my platform on Sugma Mail, the late night Sugma program, to truly voice my opinion on Mr. Cody Rhodes, because since I've started the show, I mean, it's well known, if you follow me on Twitter, if you've seen what I say about him, it's well known how I feel about him. But since the show has started, he's been pretty good. Like, things have been pretty good. He hasn't been doing this shit too much. He's actually been working with guys and making them look good. Guys like Andrade, guys like Malachi Black, but I can't take this. I'm tired. I'm tired of emotionally investing in AEW. Some of y'all, some wrestling fans who might watch me might see me constantly praise AEW, and occasionally when I talk about WWE, it's not always in the best light. They might think, oh my god, you're an AEW stan. You're completely blind to their flaws. This is the biggest fucking bullshit in wrestling. I cannot take it, dude. I keep emotionally investing in AEW because I like what they're doing. I like a lot of their stuff. I like them bringing in Punk. I like them bringing in Bryan Danielson, whatever you want to call him. But this shit keeps fucking ruining it. I swear to God, I constantly am getting emotionally invested in AEW, and then I care about a wrestler, I care about Andrade, and this shit happens. Cody just comes out with his blonde hair and his hot wife, and he's like, I'm the babyface. I'm the good guy here. And then he comes out, he spits in his hand, grabs his cock, and he just jerks it off in front of everybody and says, you have to like this. And the thing is, during COVID, he was able to just convince everybody that this was fine. This is over. I'm over. It's okay. And recently, people have been really fighting back against it. People are actually starting to realize, like, yo, this shit is getting kind of stupid. I don't get why they're still trying to keep him as a face when the crowd last month or so has been booing the fuck out of him. You know what? I'm not gonna go any deeper in because I don't want to show people. I don't want to show accounts for this part. But like, I was going through the tags. I was going through the AEW tag. And I still saw people being like, Cody just put himself through a flaming table. I don't care if you don't like him. You have to respect him. Cody, at this point, Cody can jump off a fucking bridge. I don't care. I will never respect him. He is such a fucking egomaniac who is using his bit of fucking booking power to fucking jerk himself off every fucking week. He wins matches he shouldn't, and he's constantly making everybody he works with look worse for it. Malachi Black looked amazing until Cody decided, I need to get my win. He's beaten me too many times, I need to get my win. And he just makes people look like shit. He makes people who absolutely need, they're on their way to actually becoming stars, just look like garbage. And people try and be like, no, he's self-aware. It's a part of this huge turn. It's gonna blow your mind. He's definitely self-aware. He knows what he's doing. He's a genius. You have to respect him. He put himself for a flame. I do not give a shit at this point. The only reason like an argument like that makes sense is if I care enough about the story, if I care enough about what's going on to actually properly be invested and want to see what's gonna happen. But I don't give a fuck about Cody. I'm tired of being expected to. I'm tired of, like, if I want to enjoy AEW, I need to give a fuck about Cody, and I need to accept the fact that he's gonna put himself through a fucking flaming table and then beat a guy who is one of the best wrestlers in the world, who has not gotten his fucking credit for it. Like, Andrade is literally one of the best wrestlers in the world. He's a fucking star in Mexico. And he, in WWE, got fucked over, and now in AEW is getting pinned after Cody does a fucking super spot to himself, going through a fucking flaming table. Like, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry, this is my birthday episode, and I feel like we're being very negative. I'm gonna shut up now. I'm gonna do something I don't usually do, something I shouldn't have to do on my birthday, but I feel like I'm getting worked up. I feel like I'm getting too passionate. I feel like I'm gonna give myself an aneurysm if I keep going down this path. So let's just stop, let's calm down, and let's move on to a more positive segment. And let's talk about this week's W of the week. The best segment of the show, in my opinion. It's my favorite segment, because we get to just stop and just appreciate someone for something positive they did. So, without further ado.
Can you, like, talk to Nick for me?
Yeah? Why? What happened?
I've just been hanging out with him lately, and sometimes he'll just, like, make fun of my chest hole. No one's around, I'll have, like, a Coke, and he'll just put it in my chest, and he'll be like, hold that for me. And, like, it falls and hits the floor, and I just have to, like...
No.
I'm being serious.
He does that?
You laugh, you get neutered.
Like...
And then, yeah, like, you laugh, you snip the tube. I don't know how it works.
Better idea.
Uh-huh.
Clifford the Big Red Hog.
What? I feel like if I do a skincare routine, it plays.
If you were bald, you would never be as successful as you are now.
If you have hair, are you successful?
Yeah.
My hair on your head.
Yeah.
No, I would still have viewers if I was bald.
No, you would not.
Yeah, people like me because I'm witty and I'm bilingual.
Yeah, so am I.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah? What language you speak?
American Sign Language.
Prove it.
Thank you.
Everyone knows that.
Cat.
That was kind of impressive.
Father. You know what poop is? Huh. It's pretty much the same one.
Yeah, it's just like a different color.
Yeah. Just want to take that home?
Let's go.
Wait, don't you get in trouble for playing music?
Not in this car. Not in this car.
What a mogul money move by Ludwig. Mr. Ludwig signing with YouTube, getting that big money deal. Now, we could talk about the fact that, 3 days later, he did end up getting banned from streaming for DMCA. You know, oh, we can play music in this car. Apparently not. But no, I want to stay positive. No negative, but
I always say this to you guys at some point.
let's just hear from the man
I'm gonna
himself.
hit the stop streaming button forever. But I promise it won't be today, and it won't be tomorrow. Thanks for watching, guys.
I want to take a moment to just, like, for anyone who might not know who Ludwig is, because I know I got a lot of people in here who aren't super initiated into Twitch culture, and oftentimes this segment is very Twitch-centric. But Ludwig is the man who broke Ninja's all-time sub record. He is the man who did a month-long subathon, streamed for an entire month straight. An entire month. Also, thank you for the happy birthday wishes. I was playing the video, so I couldn't say it. But this man is the king of Twitch. So just keep that in mind. I still think that was a cool move, but honestly, nothing about him getting banned on YouTube after... Apparently what it was he played like 2 seconds of Baby Shark. So yeah, it's kind of ironic. But I mean, he got his bag regardless. I was talking to one of my friends who's like not very YouTube, Twitch like savvy, and she was like, well, he still gets paid, right? I'm like, yeah, no, he paid. He signed a big fucking contract. He is making that money regardless. So, and he's also already a millionaire, so whatever. But I'll let him speak.
It's weird to say, but the hardest decision I ever made was picking between YouTube and Twitch. It doesn't seem like it should be. Feels like there should have been harder things. There's like breakups. I had to choose what college I went to, what job I had, where I moved. Those were scary too, but this feels like I'm giving up the most. I love Twitch. I really do. And before anyone just thinks that the reason I left was because of money, let me sit you down. And let me tell you exactly what happened.
I do want to say real quick, that's part of the reason why I chose to... Because I'm going to be real, dude. We have 7 viewers right now. 7 viewers is a lot more than we started with. When I first started this show, we were not averaging like... We've been over 5 viewers this entire time, which is not what we started with this show. It's not what I started streaming with. Like, dude, I streamed for months to not knowing if people were even going to be here. And if I just streamed on YouTube, if I just used my 1,000 subscriber channel to stream, I would probably have never had that issue. I probably would never have to worry about that. But I wanted to stream on Twitch because I think Twitch is a much better platform, and also just like trying to separate myself from the roundtable, trying to build an audience outside of the roundtable to potentially bring back to the roundtable even, and trying to find people who honestly, like, I'm gonna be real, with the cartoon community, I don't always feel like I'm necessarily a part of it. I always feel like I'm kind of on the outside, kind of like it's not necessarily a group of people. Not that I have an issue with anyone, but I don't always feel like it's a group of people who I fully identify with. And I look at Twitch and I feel like a lot of my humor, a lot of like my thoughts, my stances on things, just a lot of things about my identity resonate more with the audience that's on Twitch. So I really cared a lot about being on Twitch over YouTube. And I think that, like I've said, a lot of people I think do, because there is like kind of a counterculture to being on Twitch, because YouTube is like the big guy, and I think a lot of YouTubers want to go to Twitch, and often do go to Twitch, because there is like this sense of like helplessness, and like you're just at the will of a monopoly on YouTube, because YouTube, one thing changes and your entire livelihood could be entirely fucked. Honestly, definitely understand how you feel, so I'm glad to hear you're able to branch out, and I'm happy you're making moves with this. Definitely, bro. I'm incredibly happy with how streaming has gone for the last like couple months that I've been doing this show. And like I'm very excited for what happens in the future after this show, and what I might do potentially, like other ideas I might have, because I'm glad to see that shit is resonating with people. And it definitely sucks when I look at like, you know, on my main channel, just I lost a ton of subscribers because I started doing something different. And I think YouTube basically like shadow banned me on fucking YouTube. They're like, oh, you're losing a bunch of fucking followers. Like, dude, clearly you don't have good content, even though people are supporting me more than ever. Like, I think I have more people who are genuinely invested in what I'm doing now than any other point. Yeah, anyways, Ludwig, what were you saying?
You see, my partner contract with Twitch ended in November. It actually ended right around when I was in Italy. And during those times, I was talking to Twitch and I was talking to YouTube, as you do. And originally, I was like, I'm just going to chat with YouTube to leverage the deal, to buff my Twitch deal, and then stay with Twitch. Because I'm a Twitch guy. There are people out there who think of Twitch and they think of me. When I think of my own identity, I think of Twitch. And then I started chatting.
I like Tom the Streamer. I like Tom the Streamer
Chatting.
too.
And the more I did, the more I realized that YouTube made more sense for me. Like, I love streaming. But what actually makes me the happiest is just making dope shit. Making things that I think are cool. And hopefully some other people out there think they're cool too. Things like Mogul Money. Things like the Christmas album. You know? The kickball tournament.
Wait, hold on. I actually gotta tell a story. So, some of you might recognize Huey, who often comes in the chat sometimes. He's a VIP here. AEW has been having shows in Chicago every September for like the last 2 years. There was one missed because of COVID. They did it in Florida in their isolated venue. And the first year was just me and Huey. Second year is me, Huey, and our friends Devon and Walter. And this year, same group. And while we were driving down there, Huey drives. Huey's the one who drives. And we appreciate that. And because he's the one who drives, he's the one who controls the music. And he was playing Ludwig's Christmas album in September, end of August. So we're in a fucking car, hot as hell. The fucking sun is beating down on us. And it's just Ludwig and Huey's Cinderella. Baby, it's cold outside. Like, I'm like, bro, what the fuck is going on? He listens to it at the gym. Huey's a very powerful person when he wants to be. And it's because he listens to Ludwig's Christmas album year round. He is literally harnessing his power by listening to Ludwig's Christmas album.
But I ended up deciding to go with Twitch. Which,
bro, what?
Oh, yeah. Might seem backwards after the news, after what you've probably seen. Because that's not what reality is now. And after I decided, the main decision maker, I didn't know what to do after talking to all those people. So I did what I normally do. I flipped a coin. I even recorded the entire thing. I basically made the biggest decision of my life for a content coin flip.
Bro, one time I was at New York City Comic Con, so it was 2018. I'm walking around the floor with Mr. Skyward Wing. Y'all know him, Sir Skyward. And we came to a booth, and I think it was like the Dark Horse booth. And they had like this art book, Legend of Korra, and they had like storyboards and shit in there, and I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. But it was like $100. I was like, dude, I kind of want to get this, but also like I don't really want to spend $100 on this, but I kind of want to get it. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna flip a coin. And I flipped a coin. It came out tails. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna get it. And he was just like, he was flabbergasted. He was like, you really just pulled out a fucking coin to decide if you're gonna buy a book. I was so 50-50 on it. As soon as I saw tails, I'm like, all right, not getting it. I really wanted it too, but I was like, I don't want to. Dude, I'm so frugal. And part of the thing is like, I have money. Like, I don't have a ton of money. Just make that clear. I am not rich. I'm working on getting that Cash App link in the bio somewhere. I flip a coins, make setting decisions regularly. Yeah, like, but listen, like, I have $100 to spend on something I want, you know? But like, I don't want to. Like, even today, I went to the mall because I'm like, hey, it's the day before my birthday. I want to, you know, go out and treat myself, just be out in public. Luckily, I didn't get recruited to the Marines this time. I went to the mall. I went to Macy's. And I went in the Tommy Hilfiger section. And I was like, dude, that's a really nice jacket. I saw a jacket I really liked. It was like red. It had like nice material. It had cool design on it. And I was like, how much is this? I pull out the price tag. $99. I said, never mind. It's not that nice. I don't want to spend $100 on some shit that's not that great. Now, twice, honestly, bro, how much... just on this shelf over here, I've spent about $250 on Twice alone in the last year. But listen, that's worth it. They're my queens. I'm I will simp for them. I will give them my money. I literally have a Tommy Hilfiger makes some nice shit, but I wasn't about to spend $100 on that shit.
Heads, I go to YouTube. Tails, I stay on Twitch. Now, surprisingly, you might have noticed that it landed on Twitch. Yet this is not the news story that came out today. Ludwig re-signed with Twitch. That's kind of not that exciting. And that's because right after the coin flip, I felt a wave of relief, which made me think it was the right decision. And so I was happy with it, and I went to the guys at YouTube, and I said, look, I want to hop on a call with you guys because I respect you. I think you guys are doing cool things at YouTube. I really do think that, but I'm going with Twitch. And they fought for me. And I realized in that moment that even though I've been with Twitch for 3+ years, even though people call me the golden boy of Twitch, I've never felt like the golden boy of Twitch. I've never felt
Hold on, I just wanna do something real quick. Cause this is on Ludwig's second channel. What is his main channel at? 2. Alright. So we have to get 1.08 million more subscribers before YouTube actually cares about us. Keeping that in mind.
Loved by Twitch. I love Twitch, but it hasn't been a two-way street. It sounds so selfish, right? Like, I'm making a shit ton of money. A lot of people, I have a lot of fans. Everything's going well. But I feel like a whiny 8-year-old child who just wants some approval from a parent, and I never got that. I never got reached out to after the subathon. Not even like a, hey, you made us the most money anyone has ever made us in a month. Thanks. And none of that. I never got anything.
It's kind of crazy.
But I love the culture of Twitch. But YouTube, they gave me something when I came back. It was like some insane accidental negotiation tactic. They allowed me to stream way less hours a month. And
I just want to say this real quick. Obviously, both YouTube, Google, and Amazon are both fucking monstrous fucking corporations. They're incredibly, like, cold-blooded, heartless fucking behemoths that don't deserve any sympathy. But I find it very strange when you think about it. Like, Amazon has way more money than YouTube. The amount of money per content that you make on Twitch is way less than on YouTube, but at the same time, people are making way more money on Twitch. And also, the reason why they're making way more money on Twitch isn't because of what Twitch is paying out. Like, Twitch is literally not paying out that much money to streamers. It's literally just, like, crowdfunding. Like, most of the money that streamers make is based on the money that is given to them by viewers. Whether that's through donations, whether that's through subscriptions. It's all, like, that is the bulk of their money. Now, there's a flat rate that a lot of bigger streamers like Ludwig can get. But most streamers, especially if they're, you know, just within the top 10,000 and aren't really like Ludwig size getting, you know, big partner deals, are really just making money off of their viewers. Meanwhile, Amazon definitely has, and also part of it too, how much money is just like taken by Amazon from Twitch. Like, if you gift me a sub, which you can't, or if you subscribe to me, which you can't, because I'm not an affiliate, because I haven't clicked the button, you will give me $5 from you. You will lose $5. Twitch will take, like, on average, from what I've heard, for an affiliate, like $2.50. So you spend $5 to give me $2.50, and for Amazon to make $2.50. Meanwhile, Amazon is not trying to pay out the way YouTube is. But also at the same time, I don't know. When you start comparing it, it's really apples and oranges. But the point is Twitch is absurdly greedy. Ultimately, the point I'm trying to make is the very cynical point that fuck both Twitch and YouTube. Because YouTube isn't that great either. As I work on both platforms.
Rest, invest, as they say. Basically, do less work and get more money. But it gives me more time to do cool shit that I'm super excited about. Gives me more time to work on the yard. Make a new mogul money show that I can actually do every single week. And I don't have to go live trying to fill hours so I can make enough money so I can do these cooler ideas.
I need to get 20 subs before the end of the year, get paid out on Twitch. That is. See, that's exactly what Milky told me for why I shouldn't do affiliate. She was like, if you get affiliate, chances are you're not going to get enough subs to get paid out, and Twitch is just gonna take your money. And she was like, you should just set up a donation link. Honestly, I think Milky's actually live right now. I might raid her after, if she's still live.
I want to make the biggest Smash tournament in the world, and I'm going to in 2022. I want to have the biggest prize pool, the most entrants ever for Melee and Ultimate. I want to do that. But this is going to cost me probably $1 million. And I was thinking of ways to make $1 million so that I could spend $1 million without it being done. I was thinking about doing another subathon. I was thinking about doing like a subathon in person, some expansion on the idea when I decided to go with Twitch because I needed more money to be able to do a cool idea like that. I was like, why am I giving up a month of my life? And so I went to Twitch and I did the same thing that I did with YouTube.
I got my first payout December 2020 and got affiliate in August of 2020. Wait, did you actually make money though? Or did they just take your money like they said? Granted, most of the subs came from friends and super supportive guildies, but it was still a very cool experience. I mean, yeah, that's cool. If you can make money, make money. Making money however you can. As long as it's not off crypto or NFTs and like rug pull scams, then I don't know. I kind of morally object to that. But even off crypto, it depends on the crypto. It depends on the circumstances. But fuck NFTs. NFTs are fucking garbage. Hot take, I think NFTs should straight up be criminalized. Not necessarily investing in them, but I think anyone who's producing them and shit, fucking go to jail. Like, honestly, like, that shit's so fucking disgusting. And, like, it's such a... You're either scamming, and if you're not scamming, then you're just fucking destroying the environment. And it's just... Fuck that shit. I've gotten free $100+ payouts, and it's not lucrative for small streamers. No, not... Like, here's the thing. Streamers on Twitch make so much fucking money, but only if they're in, like, the top... Like, the very top bracket. Whereas, like, if you look at YouTube, there are so many people making at least minimum wage on YouTube.
I decided on YouTube. What do you think? And no disrespect to the guys I talk to, or Twitch as a whole. The guys who I talk to don't get to decide everything. They are not Twitch. Twitch is a giant multi-thousand employee company. There's 18 pipelines things have to go through before they can get done. You know, you have an idea, it won't be executed for 10 months, and it will look nothing like what you originally thought. I know all this. But it still fucking hurt when they said, we wish you the best. And so although I love Twitch, and I always thought of myself as a Twitch guy, they're not going to help me make the shit I want to make. I don't feel especially liked, respected, wanted. And I also don't want to do something because it's comfortable. The main thing holding me back from YouTube was fear. YouTube's not Facebook, no offense. It's not Mixer. It's fucking YouTube. It's like the biggest website in the world for posting content. But it's scary. And I made a pros and cons list, and the one con I had for YouTube is that I'd feel alone. And I'm still scared of that. But it's crazy not to do something just because you're scared. Everything else makes it seem like the right decision. And so if it takes a coin flip in an insane negotiation tactic for me to stop being a pussy, then so be it. I don't know if this will be cohesive. I'm recording this right after my last ever Twitch stream. And now I'm a YouTube gaming streamer. And I don't even play video games. I don't think they know about that yet, but let's just keep that a secret. I've worked really hard, by the way, if you guys haven't heard, with Otto. We made an...
Okay, he's just going to go into his YouTube extension, because that's part of the thing with YouTube and stuff, is like, people want to stay on Twitch because the chat is better. What the fuck are you? What are you doing, Streamlabs? Okay, anyways, we're past 1 o'clock, so I think it's about time that we just wrap it up. So, hold up. I've never done a raid before. Creator dashboard? Can't you just do slash? Gotta go, I need to sleep. See ya. There should be a raid widget on the right side. Wait, what? Hold on. Let me see. I got Twitch open real quick. Let me see. Let's do this. Let's do this, y'all. Stick with me. Let's see. Stream manager, insights, community. What if I'm gonna just hit. All right. So thank you all so much for coming out. Make sure you watch new roundtable video. And with all that, thank you so much for coming out. Great show. Did a lot of great things. And I'll see you all next week. Goodbye.
We have caught and compromised to a permanent end Osama bin Laden. This is something tonight, but I feel damn proud